Hey, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of Frank About Health. What makes it special is that it's going to be just me, myself, and I presenting overall health news. This would be the equivalent of not CNN or even ABC News, but it would be just focus on the health topics of the day that have been really in the media on a regular basis. For example, those of you who are in the medical profession are aware of an ongoing strike that is in day 3 in the middle of the country. Again, better wages, unionized labor. It could be a combination of doctors and nurses, EMT workers, but that's a health issue. Health concerns for ourselves include getting your COVID shot, your flu shot. And if you're over a certain age, I think 50, it's your shingles shot. And if you're over 65, it's your pneumonia shot. I've got 2 out of those 4 just this past week, and I'm headed for my shingles shot in a couple weeks. But then there's also the fact that October is an interesting month in the following way. It is both Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it is also a combination of mental and neurological health month. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you recall last week on Frank About Health, Jeff Dimitrak was here talking about something called SUDEP, sudden unexplained death from epilepsy. But he had just decided to give me an awareness that October is not just SUDEP Awareness Month. It is ADHD awareness, Down syndrome awareness, dyslexia awareness, learning disability awareness, national depression and mental health screening awareness, spina bifida awareness. And he said that's just among a few. So I decided, okay, on one level, I was going to come and talk about just general news. A lot of that was not originally planned because if you did see last week's show, I did say I had an understanding of who my guest was going to be. I had 2 people in mind and they both postponed for the next 3 weeks. So I was left with, do I give you a rerun, a replay after I had just taken a month-long hiatus, or do I give you just me? I mean, I'm taking advice a lot from Sam, who's done shows on his own on the Conscious Consultant Hour. And he has said, in our overall host meetings, as well as on his own show, that there are times when it's just time for the audience out there to see me being frank about health with all of you out there. And being that we're on TalkRadio.nyc, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch.tv, and thanks to Logan out there who's helping produce the show, he's monitoring your questions. If you have any live questions throughout the hour, please think of this as your show as well. You want to address any health topics that you're aware of that maybe you'd like to share that are not going to be on discussion for the next hour, or possibly you could just answer comments ask questions or make comments about some of the things that I'm going to discuss. So for this reason alone, I will also be showing excerpts from ABC News and their focus of specific health issues. It's not being sponsored by ABC, but it is already been broadcast on ABC, and therefore it's public information that I'm showing from YouTube and wouldn't qualify for providing any information that should require permission because it's public health information. And I want to be one of the first to provide that here on this show. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm not going to issue a disclaimer because I'm just going to be providing about updates and news that's already out there. But I am going to issue segment breakdowns and make focus on the major issues that you should walk away from this show with. So I'm going to break it into breast cancer awareness and mental and neurological care. That is specifically it. And then when we close out the show, I'll give my promotions about what's coming up on TalkRadio.nyc, on other episodes of Frank About Health, what other things I'm doing to advocate for healthcare awareness within family, friends, loved ones, associates, and overall how we can have ongoing communication in between each episode. Well, I guess the first thing I should start with is Cancer Awareness Month. That being said, I'm going to share the screen and show what was on GMA3 sometime this week. I do not think it was today.
It is pink in the studio for a reason. October is Breast Awareness Cancer Month, and we're going to be talking about prevention, how you can also treat the disease, and also how we can help.
Yes, a very important month devoted to education, the importance of early detection, and access to quality care. So to get us all on the same level, I wanted to start with some basic numbers. So first off, breast cancer. It represents approximately 30% of all cancers. And also, unfortunately, it's the most common cancer diagnosed within the United States. That equates to approximately 240,000 women and almost 2,000 men each and every year. The incident rate we've seen in recent years, unfortunately, has increased by about 0.5%. Secondly, risk factors. The most common risk factor is age. The median age of diagnosis is the age of 62. That means that half of those diagnosed are under the age of 62. Also, inherited genetic risk factors, family history, first-degree relatives with a history of breast or ovarian cancer, and those who have dense breasts. And to be specific about that, breast density is diagnosed on imaging. It's not something that can be diagnosed on exam.
You got to get your imaging done.
Got to get the imaging done. Bringing it to that screening, screening and discussions about screening should start at the age of 40. And most people don't realize it, but most insurance coverage, it should be all, cover mammograms every 1 to 2 years for women at the age of 40. It's important to understand your coverage the very same way that you understand your bank account. And then I think the most important number is survivors. Right now in the United States, there are more than 4 million women and men that are surviving breast cancer and currently undergoing treatment. And I think that number is the most important, especially to draw on that collective strength.
They are thriving, and early detection is key.
Absolutely, and many don't realize it, but if you find breast cancer at the earliest stages, your 5-year survival rate can be as high as 99%. So start that discussion about mammograms, get in there, and make sure that you just get all your questions answered.
And look, I can say it can be scary to go in and get that imaging done, but it's so much more important to do it now and catch it early.
Yes, get it out of the way. Unfortunately, in the emergency room, I'm usually at the very beginning of many stories of their breast cancer when they're finding masses and trying to understand what can be the cause. And again, getting it out of the way is so key, so important. Don't put it off. It's your health. Treat it as the most important thing in your life.
Can't say it enough, Doc. Thank you.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Rob.
Okay. So I'm hoping all of you heard that. If you didn't, I apologize. I'm doing my best to bring real live media into the show. That was on GMA3 sometime during this week because the month of October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Just to repeat some of the key takeaways, men do get it as well. They said 62 was the age at which diagnosis is more rampant, but after age 40, for most women, especially your insurance provider will allow coverage for your annual or biannual mammogram, which is every 1 to 2 years. I could say that, obviously it is not one of my major concerns. I know if I had a guest on the show with me today who is concerned about breast cancer, she would have been able to give you much more direct information. But I'm doing my part to just spread the awareness for the month of October because the rest of the show will be focused on mental and neurological health. And then overall, the other takeaway is the host over at GMA3 had indicated that, the survival rate, if you have constant ongoing checkups, is 99%. So that's all very good news. All right. So I did my part for women's health today, and I hope that a lot of you out there got a chance to hear it clearly and learn something from it. All right. Overall, we're about 2 minutes to break, and I'm considering that a breather because now I'm going to prepare for the rest of the show where I will discuss, again, a lot of what Jeff had talked about on last week's show. We'll touch upon SUDEP again. We'll go into other mental health and neurological health awareness issues that are happening this month. And then we'll hopefully take some of your questions if you have any. Thanks again for me being frank about the news in healthcare. And we'll be back after these brief messages. Stay tuned.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on TalkRadio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on TalkRadio.nyc at 1 p.m. Eastern on Fridays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern on TalkRadio.nyc.
What really drives success in business? Introducing Intangify, the show that explores the intangible assets that create value and growth. I'm Matthew Asbell, your host and an attorney focused on innovation. Join me Fridays at noon Eastern to discover how innovation, culture, and other intangibles shape thriving companies from startups to established businesses. We'll share strategies to unleash your business's true potential. Tune in live on TalkRadio.nyc Fridays at noon Eastern and Intangify your business today.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. And now I'm going to get involved in discussing pretty much a lot of my research expertise, as well as following up on some of the discussion that I had last week with Jeff Dimitra when we talked about SUDEP. I want everyone to be aware that mental health and neurological health is predominant in all of our healthcare needs and advocacy work. Now, what I mean by that is that, the phrase, if you don't have your health, you really don't have your wealth, you don't have your knowledge base, you don't have the ability to move forward and get everything done. We talked earlier about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Of course, the lesson learned there is that keeping yourself in check to make sure that you have early detection will allow pretty much anyone to go ahead and maintain their health while they're still moving about their life. Now, the thing is that we all can move about our life when we are focused, when we live in the moment, when we are aware of whatever our traumas have been and whether they're affecting us in our life today. When, if you are dealing with epilepsy, like Jeff and I have discussed on several shows, we always have to be monitoring of our environment. And if we're feeling weird or awkward or strange sensations going throughout our system throughout the day, which could be the onset of a seizure, or could just be a warning that you're in an environment that's not safe for you. But aside from being vigilant in those particular instances, we all have to be vigilant about our healthcare so we can live the best quality of life possible, which is why I want to dedicate the rest of this show to focusing on the mental and neurological health issues that are pretty much consuming us. And that all being said, I'm going to start talking again about what Jeff mentioned last week about SUDEP. Now, SUDEP is an acronym, SUDEP, Sudden Unexpected Death in Epilepsy, which, by the way, is a fatal complication of epilepsy, but it is not a cause of death, rather a category of death. In SUDEP cases, a person with epilepsy dies unexpectedly with no other clear cause of death found when a postmortem exam has been done or an autopsy. In an attempt to standardize the definition, the FDA and other organizations, including one that I have researched named Burroughs Wellcome, developed the following criteria for SUDEP in 1993. So take your pencils and papers out and write them down if you're interested. One is that the individual has epilepsy, which is defined as recurrent unprovoked seizures. The second one, the individual died unexpectedly while in a reasonable state of health. Number 3, the death occurred suddenly and within minutes. Number 4, the death occurred during normal and benign circumstances. An obvious medical cause of death could not be determined at autopsy. And number 6, the death was not the direct result of a seizure or status epilepticus. That's what makes SUDEP very, not vague, but kind of like a phenomenon or an unexplained issue. I could presume, or anyone could presume, that if the individual suffering from a seizure died all of a sudden, that it was connected. But sometimes, think about it, it's electrical discharges and brainwave activity that are uncontrolled and either genetically or post-traumatically end up being provoked. And it's not only affecting the brain really, but it's also affecting the other organs. So maybe it has some inference as to stopping certain organs from functioning, which could lead to the death. But in a lot of ways, it's not conclusive. Another thing that is common is ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Now, to define that, it is a chronic condition including attention difficulty, hyperactivity, and impulsiveness. It often begins in childhood and can persist into adulthood. It may contribute to things like low self-esteem, troubled relationships, difficulty at school or work. Symptoms include limited attention and hyperactivity, but treatments do include medication and talk therapy. Now, 3 categories of ADHD, as I mentioned earlier, are inattention, impulsivity, and hyperactivity. But of those 3, the hyperactivity seems to be in constant motion, and it can sometimes climb at an increasing speed and definitely keep you distracted. So I would see where the medication can help. I know there are a lot of students who take Adderall or even some other kind of sedatives to help them in studying. But I would say definitely if you are suffering from ADHD, which might even have a genetic component, talk therapy is definitely a key. Another aspect is Down syndrome, a genetic condition where a person is born with an extra copy of chromosome number 21. This means that they have a total of 47 chromosomes instead of 46, our standard number. This can affect how their brain and body develop. People diagnosed with Down syndrome have happy and healthy lives as long as they have supportive care. I couldn't say anything about the lifespan of an individual with Down syndrome, but what I can say is, having met a few in my life, they are relatively happy and stable individuals, but they do need special education and they do need constant care from family and loved ones, and of course their medical professional. And then finally, dyslexia. Well, dyslexia is not the core problem. Dyslexia is a group of symptoms such as difficulty reading and writing, difficulty processing sound, problem solving it has difficulty putting detail in order, communication skills are difficult in remembering sound. They have great long-term memory, but yet the way I've always understood dyslexia is that instead of an R, it looks like a P, or it's a switch of letters. That's a very simplistic sense of it. But at the end of the day, while it is symptomatic, it is still showing a disarray of how the neurons are firing in the brain. Overall, those 4 that I mentioned, SUDEP, dyslexia, ADHD, and I think the other one was Down syndrome, are all, well, Down syndrome is genetic in nature, as clearly defined, but they are all relative examples of how the brain has been rewired in some way, whether in utero or probably during one's life and traumatic events that may not have occurred. Epilepsy can be considered that way as well. But fundamentally, no matter how you slice it, no matter what your neurological issue is, your mental health is always at stake. Fundamentally, people have anxiety and people have depression, but depression is the core that we all have to get to the understanding of whether there needs to be an overall treatment for. Because once that is dealt with succinctly and professionally and medically, the other symptoms, as I previously mentioned, may actually be cured at the same time or may not. They may be separate and distinct. Well, I think I'm going to devote the 3rd segment of the show to mainly depression, and I'm going to switch the screen and show you a whole summary or a blog written by, let me see exactly who wrote it. It is written by medicalnewstoday.com. And when I show that to you, we're going to go over into understanding that there are ways to deal with depression, whether through medicines, whether through therapy, whether through managing with good support networks, family members. I'm here at NYU Langone Health Systems, and they have an excellent psychiatric department called Psychiatric Associates on Park Avenue in the 30s. And I also, having studied neuropsychology, I also know the right doctors in this center that could be of reference to anyone out there looking to speak to somebody. So if anybody, after we return and we go over the whole depression segment of the show, if anybody wants to reach out to me to find resources, you can always reach me on my social media or on my email, frankrharrison1@gmail.com. So overall, I think I noticed that in developing this episode, I went from I'm going to talk about news of the day to I'm going to talk about what this month is about. And thanks to Jeff's guidance in creating the breakdown between the various aspects of neurological and mental health awareness coupled with Breast Cancer Awareness Month, it just makes sense to be frank about those two main issues, because in the coming month, we will have episodes on Frank About Health, where individuals who are dealing with those illnesses or dealing with those concerns will be guests, and we will also break it further. Let's see what else I can share. Overall, if anybody is dealing with suicide or suicidal ideation, I want to quote the number that Phyllis Quinlan, my co-host last year, had discussed, 988. It was activated in July of 2022. I see it advertised all over the place now on talk shows, on medical shows, on TV, commercials, especially when there's suicide prevention programs out there. I would recommend using that, especially if you fit any of the categories that I had just discussed and you want to deal with your depression and you're dealing with other kind of ideation that you really don't want to be coping with. Just go ahead and dial that number and they will find you a talk therapist to deal with. And I think you'll find yourself at least coping as you find the solutions and the cures to whatever your mental or neurological health problem is. Okay. I think I'm a little bit early to go to a break. So let me wait until I get the warning and just recap some of our previous shows where we did talk about mental health issues. If you recall, there was an episode I did with the Replacement Child Forum where a lot of individuals were dealing with identity as a result of being replacement children. And they had formed the Replacement Child Forum as a group to support those survivors of, or those individuals who were considered replacement children. And they were learning to cope with acceptance and forgiveness and understand that it was not their fault that they were replaced from the previous sibling who had died before they were born. You know, it's a mental health issue, even though everybody is born into different circumstances, you know, but the one thing that most people need to realize when they're dealing with mental health, the idea is not to hide from it and not to run away from it. It's to engage with community, whatever the community that you can find yourself involved with or engaged with. Because sometimes just engaging with that community goes ahead and improves on your mental health. Sometimes when I have a sluggish day or when I'm feeling depressed, I just walk outside and I notice that I do my best thinking when I'm doing my walking. Sometimes you just got to take yourself by your bootstraps and get out of the house and get out of whatever other environment that is stagnating your thinking and just get yourself going. Because when you do that, most people don't realize it, but you are in charge of your mental health. You don't have to wait for that magic pill or that magic cure. You just have to take action. And it's in taking action that you see yourself regulating. This also brings me to the attention. We were talking about Good Morning America earlier with their discussion of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. But there's a book that I had just ordered on Amazon.com by Matt Gutman, who is an ABC News reporter. No Time to Panic. This is a man who's gone to the Ukraine, who's gone to other war-torn areas of the world, who has dealt with, he was in, reporting on the insurrection when that happened in January of 2021. Yet he suffers from PTSD and tremendous anxiety. You would think that someone that deals with that would find being in those hostile environments as triggers, but apparently they seem to sedate him. So he writes about that whole story. I would highly recommend getting this book on Amazon. And it's, again, dealing with mental health, but with respect to PTSD. Okay, I've got the warning. We're headed for another break. So when we return, we're going to talk all about depression and ways to learn, cope, heal, and regulate it. All right. Thanks for being here on Frank About Health and TalkRadio.nyc, as well as all of our socials. We'll be back in a few.
Are you passionate about the conversation around racism? Hi, I'm Reverend Dr. TLC, host of the Dismantle Racism Show, which airs every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on TalkRadio.nyc. Join me and my amazing guests as we discuss ways to uncover, dismantle, and eradicate racism. That's Thursdays at 11 o'clock a.m. on TalkRadio.nyc.
In a post-COVID world, you may have many unanswered questions regarding your health. Are you looking to live a healthier lifestyle? Do you have a desire to learn more about mental health and enhance your quality of life? Or do you just want to participate in self-understanding and awareness? I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each Thursday, I will tackle these questions and work to enlighten you. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. on TalkRadio.nyc, and I will be frank about health to advocate for all of us.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on TalkRadio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on TalkRadio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. I figure I'll just go straight to the slide that focuses on depression. And we'll get more information on this. Okay, so Depression Awareness Month is in October. It's recognized each year as that month to increase understanding, decrease stereotypes, and help educate on how depression and other mental health issues impact people. Awareness months give people affected by a specific condition a chance to share their stories. The goal is to help increase the overall understanding of depression or other conditions and help overcome stereotypes. Now, I just want to make sure that everyone is listening to this. Okay. Overall, there's an interesting article about why this month is important. And it talks also about 30% of people based on a 2018 study reported believing a weak personality causes depression. 58.9% reported believing that pharmaceutical interventions or medications are not an effective treatment. And over 70% reported understanding the importance of rest, that a person may appear happier than they actually are when living with depression. So it's an advocacy month, and you try to get involved in a lot of programs and seminars and just everything out there that is available to you. Now, this is when I can get more personal, especially because this is Frank About Health, and I will start talking about what life has been like, both living with depression as well as living with people who suffer from depression, and also coming into contact with a lot of people that have been traumatized and therefore depressed. Over the last several years, while I've been doing this show, I have been dealing as a patient advocate for two people, my father and my cousin. To date, my cousin is now an ongoing Alzheimer's patient, and we are really advocating for her to get care other than the care that she's already received through her family and doctors. My father is a recovering cancer patient, and Tuesday, we got great news that his medication is totally effective and totally working. Now, he'll never be cured, especially at his age, but now he has to know what it's like to live life with the condition in some form of containment, not remission, just containment. Just like I, to this day, after 35 plus years of living with epilepsy, have taken a various amounts of medications, finally to the point where I have been seizure free for about 17 years, I believe it is, other than little minor mishaps here and there due to a partial lesion that I have on my temporal lobe. But I, to this day, take medication to keep my energy level as high as possible so I can live an effective quality of life. Now, what I noticed in my father's example is that his depression is based on missing the kind of life that he once had before the cancer came. I can understand that. That's almost like the equivalent of all missing the old days. Now, I'm not saying that he is without hope. That is definitely not the case for him. But what I am saying is when I've observed that even during good news moments, he has a hard time processing it, because when you're dealing with a whole long period of time of, is this medication working? How can I manage these side effects? I'm depressed about the pain I'm feeling, so forth and so on. And then all of a sudden a big relief comes to you. It's almost like unheard of. It's almost like a shock to the system. And I can understand that. But it also brings to clarity that depression is really under some form of your own control. It's how you perceive things. So you have to be able to look at the information of your illness and know how to benefit from it, work with it, advocate for it, turn it into a positive, as they say. When you start to look at the situation less internally and more objectively, and see with your knowledge of what you've been through, how you can help others, believe it or not, that reverses the depression. It makes you feel proactive. It makes you feel a little bit of confident. It makes you a knowledge expert. I say the same thing to every guest that I have on Frank About Health, that after I do the show, I feel such a calm and a relaxation because I've expressed my thoughts. I've had a chance to hear the guests express their thoughts and promote their subject matter that they may have written about, or they have a podcast about, or they're advocating for different healthcare issues that are going on. But the point is, that is what we are all seeking. We are all seeking that while living a life that has been diminished in some form due to an illness or due to age or due to just not being fully aware at the time while going through the crisis, that when you come out on the other side, that's when you take ownership of your lessons learned and just go ahead and reinforce for others so that you can teach the benefit of your experience. And therefore, just by doing that, you don't feel as depressed anymore. So going back to what I was reading earlier about the statistics that a lot of people say that antidepressants don't help or that they actually add to the depression, that's relative. That's really depending on the individual. I have been prescribed medication for antidepressants, but I also am taking medication for anticonvulsants. And the mix of the two could be a very bad mix. So for that reason, I have never taken those prescriptions as offered. You have the right to decline the prescription. And I'm glad that that was the case, because it turned out that some of my anticonvulsant medications had psychotropic properties to help benefit my energy and my focus and my goal setting. All of which, when a person is dealing with seizure disorder, even when they're conscious, a lot of your focus can be segued a bit beyond your control, but the medication can help coordinate that. You know, in the case of my father, his medication has its own side effects, and he's learning to treat those side effects accordingly. So by learning to accept what he has is a work in progress, it's better than the alternative. That is something to be happy about rather than depressed about. So the best that you can do for anyone, if you have a loved one suffering or recovering from some form of cancer, try to do your best to outreach to them and give them a piece of their past back if you can. You know, it is a family sport in recovering from cancer, not just obviously the patient, him or herself, but the children, the parents, the spouses, and of course, any distant relatives, cousins, and so forth and so on. Overall, all I can say is one thing that has helped me with depression is advocacy. Some people, it is their work, whatever it is that they do for a living. Some people, it's entertaining and throwing parties. For some people, it's writing a book, you know? So overall, when you are given depression, it is not a death sentence. It is a life sentence. It is a warning to take some action and do what you can to help others. It's almost like another statement I heard recently, and it was on another ABC News show, The View. Basically, the woman panelist, I'll leave nameless for now, had indicated that the reason why anyone has power in whatever position it is, in business, in politics, in your profession, in society, whatever, is to empower others. So the reason why a lot of people go through illness, especially mental illness, is when you get to the other side, to empower those that are still going through it. That is the secret in how you use any of your medical issues that you've come faced with in your life and are able to go ahead and, again, create a new community out there. And as I said earlier, engage in community so that you would be able to live with the illness, but in a positive point of view. All right, I guess that's my little mantra for this segment. But another thing to be focused on when it comes to depression is that, like I said earlier, the 998 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline basically is a place to go to when you're really struggling, because everything I've just said in terms of community and supporting others has to begin with reaching out to people who can help you form that community. It is necessary when dealing with mental and neurological illness to really engage in various communities and organizations and group conversations. I'm not talking about group therapy. I'm talking about groups that can work together to help each other, and you can live as much as a better quality of life. I also do think that there are those mental health individuals suffering from things like bipolar disorder, or even, like I said earlier, ADHD, that does require medication. So I would not say do not look at antidepressants as a drug not to take, but I would highly recommend listening to what your doctor says and looking at what your healthcare issue is. And if you need to take the medication to help balance you out, I would recommend to go for it. Now, the thing is that a lot of people also know that cannabis has been issued for things, not just epilepsy, but for bipolar disorder, for ADHD, for increasing your mood. I'm not referring to the THC version, but in terms of being able to create a medically necessary solution, cannabis is now being sold today for that very purpose. I know another thing that I would highly recommend to everyone is that stop engaging in media that is not giving you the direct truth. I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to be, I don't want to hear any hate mail over any comment I just said. But sometimes minimizing the amount of noise that you take in helps with your mindset, helps with your sleeping, and helps with whatever you need to do to maintain a balanced life. Now, I'm wearing these speakers again that I have talked with Maury Zelkovich when he's been on the show talking about the Maury method. And even as I'm doing this show with these speakers and listening to the music during the commercial breaks, it is relaxing me. These can be very instrumental for your Alzheimer's issues, your neurological issues, your mental health issues, sleep issues, depression. I've always explained on the show when Maury's been here that I have access to all of the files that he's engineered, and all of you can sample them for free by reaching out to me at frankrharrison1@gmail.com, saying where you heard the interview, about what it's for, if it was Alzheimer's or sleep or depression, and I could send it to you. And if you want more information after that fact, if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, then it doesn't work for you. But I can give you more information as needed. Again, feel free at any time to reach out to me. I spoke to Maury earlier during the week. He now, if you had seen the show that we did together a few weeks ago, has created visuals, video files that you could look at that can help with your neurological focus and balance. I would never show that on an episode of Frank About Health because I don't want to traumatize people out there. But as we were discussing it, he is definitely working on something that is going to help all of us really have command over our brain, our neurological and mental health. Well, I think I'm about to go to another break. So when we return, I'm going to summarize a little bit about what I said and then over breast cancer awareness, the mental and neurological health, and then summarize what's going to be happening in the next 6 weeks right here on Frank About Health. All right, so stay tuned to this episode of Frank About Health on TalkRadio.nyc and on all of our socials. We'll be back in a few minutes.
What really drives success in business? Introducing Intangify, the show that explores the intangible assets that create value and growth. I'm Matthew Asbell, your host and an attorney focused on innovation. Join me Fridays at noon Eastern to discover how innovation, culture, and other intangibles shape thriving companies from startups to established businesses. We'll share strategies to unleash your business's true potential. Tune in live on TalkRadio.nyc Fridays at noon Eastern and Intangify your business today.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on TalkRadio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on TalkRadio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on TalkRadio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody. I guess some of my previous guests are, in fact, watching right now. I just got a nice long text summary from Jeffrey Dimitrak about National Depression and Mental Health Screening Awareness Month. So I'm going to read it directly from my phone. It's more of his insight into it. And thanks again, Jeff, in advance. So I'm quote, everything I say from this point is a quote from him. For National Depression and Mental Health Screening Awareness Month, these are the facts that I found. Over 100 million people in the U.S. will suffer from an anxiety disorder in their lifetime. Research has also shown something that many scientists didn't expect. Higher levels of dopamine, the feel-good hormone when we're anxious. A lack of being able to distinguish healthy anxiety from anxiety disorders has caused an increase in anxiety diagnoses with medical professionals. Depression has increased in the younger population because they are confused about their lives. Well, we all know that famous epidemic called teenage years or teenagerhood or teenagehood that can cause a lot of confusion. But I know that what they've been saying in the media also, and this is just my own comment to what he just said, a lot of overuse of certain social media adds to that. Body dysmorphia, as sometimes emphasized on either TikTok or Instagram, sometimes even depending on who you're talking to on specific services, you could be talking to the wrong people who are trying to, say nasty things to you and imply that you're no good and really play with your mind. Those are the things that parents have to watch for. Social media can be dangerous if it's not used correctly. Identifying the source of your anxiety allows to resolve that issue. The Yale Child Study Center encourages parents to help their children work through anxiety rather than avoiding it. When listening to loved ones, stay calm, express empathy, and encourage them to consider the situation from alternate perspectives. Continuing to talk about a single problem with friends or on social media has been associated with heightened depression and anxiety symptoms. So yes, obviously this is one form of communication, but you need to be communicating with your friends, family, loved ones, medical professionals to get the reality test of whatever bothers you. Depression can be genetic, and can be due to a head injury, for example. But depression is also an interpretation with either the right facts or the wrong facts, or a lot of distorted feelings based on past traumas. Sometimes you need a coach, whether it is a therapist or whether it is someone that you really trust, that you can engage with, and do your best to work through the darkness. It can be a struggle, a lifelong struggle for many people, but with the right help and the right support, it's doable. And I mean, thankfully, similar with my epilepsy, I found the right support in many different walks of life. And I'm glad to say that I look at my epilepsy as a gift, and I'm using it to the betterment of the community at large. And I'm going to give a shout out to Sam. When we met back in 2016, you were getting me at a point when my epilepsy was taking me to dark places. But thanks for giving me the platform of Frank About Health on your network. And I, for that reason, will continue to be here doing my best to give high quality shows. Today, this is like a trial run, because I know that if I'm ever going to do a news format show again, it would involve at least one other person, probably from the network. That would be great. But maybe I could contact Phyllis again and have her come back and make comments. But that's still a work in progress. I'm just going to see how the ratings for this particular show come out over the next few weeks. All right. I think we have another 5 or 6 minutes. So I'm going to share some updates on our last 3 guests that have been here. I already did talk about Maury, so I'll start with him. And I'm also going to talk about future activities that I'm going to do here on Frank About Health. So I'm going to share the screen, and they're just scenes. So I'm going to, hopefully you'll hear me. And Logan, if you can't, send me messages or whatever. Thank you, everyone out there, for working with me on this show. Okay, as I said earlier, the Maury Method. He has an entire website, themaurymethod.com. This homepage about Maury Zelkovich, the research he's done, his own podcast that he's either been on or that he has done himself, a blog that he has, and how to contact him. But these are the products of which I have the files to give to all of you out there, and his permission to do so if they're upon request. Digital coffee, brainwave entrainment sample that helps to ramp up your brain power, boost your creativity, reduce stress, anxiety, tension, and worry. Revitamind, which is what he talked about when we were dealing with the Alzheimer's episode. The quantum mind method, which is what he just talked about on his last show when he was here a few weeks ago. Quantum confidence, it says exactly what it does. It helps boost your confidence and tries to remove the root cause of all of your problems and frustrations. Effortless prosperity. One simple habit can become your secret weapon for creating the kind of financial ease and security you've dreamed of. Effortless health. This is reducing chronic pain, common among all of us as we age. Effortless relationship and love. Quantum Triliminal new collection. I don't know much about this. I think he mentioned the triliminals do a lot of stuff with meditation and help with your sleep, as well as help with focus. I guess 2.0 is the updated version. And brain prints. There's a lot more stuff here. Either way, I highly recommend that you check out his website. And I've already spoken to him about being here again. And is Retha Gray and her retirement house. Retha Gray's retirement house, well, it's not her and the other 5 members of her retirement house, have 5.3 million followers on TikTok. They have definitely reached mass media. And the reason why I'm thinking about her, especially as we're talking about Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and as we're talking about Mental and Neurological Awareness Month as well, is because this is an individual who was pretty much a cornerstone in helping me when advocating for a mutual friend of ours in April, and also when she had her own cardiac event in February. If you remember, we had a 3-part episode of Frank About Health, learning about plaque removal, for Cardiac Awareness Month. And then Jeff Dimitrak and his Stages of Epilepsy Instagram posting. He talks about SUDEP, his book. If you remember, he said his audiobook is coming out around the 18th of October in time for SUDEP awareness. He has copies of our shows that we've done together, including the most recent one. And he's very much looking forward to eventually having his own Stages of Epilepsy podcast in the future. These are 3 instrumental people, especially currently in my life, in dealing with personal and family-oriented issues, but at the same time, they are very involved in their business to help us use our brain power when necessary, to help us look at the positivity of life, to help us manage our neurological health, and to continue to advocate as they are doing in their own work efforts. I see that we have 3 minutes until end. Thank you again, Logan, for all your help on this show of me, myself, and I. I want to say that on tomorrow's episodes at TalkRadio.nyc, we will have at 10 o'clock Philanthropy in Focus with Tommy D. 11 o'clock will be Steve Fry and Always Friday. 12 o'clock is Intangify with Matthew Asbell. Closing out the week at 1 o'clock with The Hard Skills and Dr. Mira Branco. She has also been an inspiration in watching her program. I highly recommend watching it to end your week right. Also, we will be back next Thursday on Frank About Health. I already, believe it or not, have 3 possible guests, but I'm not going to promise anything. And hopefully I will have that guest on, whoever the one that manages to commit. If you want to see any of the previous shows that I have already announced with Maury, Retha, and Jeff, just check out my YouTube channel, which I think for the benefit of the audience, I will share the screen. And you will see right here, Frank About Health on our YouTube channel with Talking Alternative Broadcasting. And then there's my own website, frankrharrison.com. You can also see my Betty White tribute on there. You'll also see the link to other shows on the network and the link to my podcast, as well as my SoundCloud files and my blogs. And hopefully we'll be able to communicate directly by email at frankrharrison1@gmail.com. Okay. I hope I gave you the big overview. And also, I want to give a shout out to the 2 shows that are on Thursday before me. That would be, obviously, Sam Leibowitz and the Conscious Consultant Hour. He is a motivator for me. He's the last show before I come in, even though there are reruns in between. And of course, the morning always starts with Dismantle Racism and Reverend Dr. TLC. I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to really have her appear on Frank About Health. I know she has a show that is doing a good cause. And I just want to say to everybody, thank you for my own version of Frank About Health News. It was really celebrating October. We're here in October 5th. And I am always interested whenever they say something is like Breast Cancer Awareness Month, then you have other medical fields saying it's really SUDEP Awareness Month. So I wanted to cover the bases for everybody. So I'll be back next week, and I will see you all then. I'm signing off now. Thanks for being here. Thanks again, Logan, for your help. And I'll return next week. Take care. Have a good weekend. Bye.